Sup gamers, today we'll cover the differences in team building for Kingdoms versus Confessions, and rate how each hero performs as a primary stagecoach party member. In Kingdoms, it's important to get the strongest possible squad at the crossroads to start the run, because you only get 12 on your roster, and it's entirely random after your starting 4. The differences between Kingdoms heroes and Confessions is a heavier focus on sustain skills, primarily healing and stress healing, and opening skill selection. On Radiant and Normal, you start with your basic skill set, and on Stygian and Blood Moon you get a skill set that's partially curated and partially random. All heroes start out as Wanderer with paths locked behind a hefty price, so make sure the hero in question is strong in that base role. There are 2 heroes I put in the top tier that fill their specific roles perfectly. There are heroes I'll always feel comfortable taking regardless of their spawn skills or quirks. The first is Plague Doctor. Still the best healer in the game, you will always start with Battlefield Medicine, a fat heal with no cooldown that saves you a lot of health in this dot-filled mode. You'll always get Noxious Blast as your base attack, which is pretty mediocre given the Beastmen are relatively blight resistant. Plague Doctor is even better in Standard, with Incision, my preferred attack, and Blinding Gas, which is incredible for the Beast mashes. You also have Indiscriminate Science to unlock later, another elite heal with no use limit. Notably, Plague Grenade has now been nerfed. It now has a 1-turn cooldown, and this combined with Beastman Blight Resist has nerfed that particular playstyle. In addition to the fantastic skill set, current Surgeon Path, this will be reworked and nerfed later this year most likely, gives you additional HP, great for countering fatigue, along with more healing and direct damage. One of the handful of hero paths I consider essential to unlock. Alchemist is worthless in this mode, the HP is too low and the Blight Piercing isn't good enough for the hardest beast mashes. My second essential tier hero is the Manatarms. First and foremost, he has Bolster, the best stress heal in the game, in a mode where stress relief is at a premium. It's even a part of his base kit. He has Taunt, including Block plus Taunt with Stand Fast plus, key to standing up to some of the champions in this mode that can one-tap a weaker hero. His sizable HP pool, along with this block, helps him handle the fatigue rate, keeping him in your main party for longer. Defender is another key skill to protect your backline against some of the Beastman attacks that ignore front row taunt. He can handle the shuffle from ambushes and various mobs with Rampart and Hold the Line, and he even has some self-sustain and decent damage with Crush. This broad skill set makes any of his random skill rolls usable to open, saving precious mastery points. He's been fully reworked, meaning he's not likely to be nerfed anytime soon, and he's best in his Wanderer role, allowing you to ignore his paths. Let's talk about my next tier, the Always Pickable. Hellion is my top frontline pick here, giving you elite damage to the front row, and more importantly, to rank 4 with Iron Swan. She also has an incredible self-heal, clearing bleed, all dots on upgrade, and giving multi-turn sustain with Adrenaline Rush. She also has a couple movement skills and an Immobilize to handle Shuffle. She's reasonable at any difficulty, but even better on basic because she gets Hack and Swan and Toe-to-Toe at base, 3 of the 5 skills you want long-term. And finally, she comes with a solid HP pool, and also one of the few essential paths, Ravager, to be reworked and nerfed eventually, that gives her more HP to counter the fatigue, along with even more damage. She also has a stress heal. However, this only heals 1 stress on your party, leaving them at the critical 4 stress that allows negative barks, and at Windsor, making it something I never run. Universal back row heroes include Runaway, who provides a solid burn dot, an elite bleed, the most common dot, heal, with no threshold, and Smokescreen, arguably the best upgraded debuff in the game, along with self-regen and self-dot clear. She fits in any party, any rank, and has a good path, Arsonist, to be reworked later, that gives res piercing. She always starts with Firefly, and on Standard you'll get Smokescreen out of the box as well. Occultist is another back row. His heal is unreliable, but with no cooldown or use limit, it can at least be spammed. The biggest problem is on random you don't always get his best attack, Abyssal Artillery. Burning Stars is incredible against bosses with block, one of the best solvers in the game. His curses are quite useful as well. On basic he always gets his pull as well, giving you some corpse clear. He has a good path, Warlock, though the HP is a bit scary. Aspirin is good on paper with the HP, but he occupies Surgeon's rank 3 spot there unfortunately. Ritualist is an option against bosses I suppose, doing something with Malediction, but this is pretty costly for something that is only situationally good. Keep in mind all these paths will be reworked sometime in the future. Vestal is arguably the best support hero in the game, with her 2 consecrations giving her squad consistent token generation, a multitude of heals, including a party regen, dot clear, and some unique utility, including a stress heal and guard, and flexibility in either frontline or backline damage. However, she loses way too much being in the front line, and this is her primary problem, especially with mystery skills. Usually your bar is a jumbled mess to start, and she takes a bit of mastery to get going. However, once she does get going, she's pretty strong into the late game. She has 2 usable paths. Seraph makes her consecrations last longer and gives you a stronger heal off that, plus higher potential for big judgment nukes. Confessor is fantastic specifically for the final boss, allowing you to mass remove enemy tokens with Illumination and cast negative tokens and even a stun with your judgment. I rarely take her in my opening squad, but she's a good backup once you get some points into her, and an exceptional C specialist with her fat HP pool and recovery. The last and weakest in this tier is Grave Robber. She's best in rank 3, where she can use Pick, but is usually in 4 because of Plague Doctor. Dagger, Flashing Daggers, and Poison Darts are all solid skills, but don't beat a cultist or run away. In my opinion, her best attraction is her 2 heals, one of which is also a corpse clear, for maximum sustain. For Universal Frontline, Crusader from Binding Blade DLC does everything. He's got a heal, stress heal, taunt, direct and dot damage, along with some useful utility. He also has Holy Lance to deal with frequent shuffles and ambushes. The only reason he's not top tier is Manatarms is better in that tank stress healer role, and Crusader doesn't have the reach of Hellion to mesh with Manatarms. Flagellant is an elite tank and healer combo. Ultimate sustain with more and more in Sepsis, along with Lash's Gift, and Deathless offers a no threshold, no use limit heal. His damage isn't much, especially with Blight against Beastmen, but my biggest problem is he's again a bad pair with Manatarms compared to Hellion, and he offers no stress healing. Death is always a concern as well, though if you win the fight, you're sitting pretty strong, especially early. The next tier all has major issues, usually lacking in self-sustain skills, but are nice to fill in or lead a siege team. Jester is one of 3 solid stress healers, and comes with a plethora of utility along with a nice blind and bleed, but unfortunately has average HP and no heals at all. Again, he's a fine fill-in, and the horror clear on Toon Plus is great, but he doesn't offer a lot to your main team. He's also not a great siege hero since stress clear doesn't matter here. He can be a useful nuker with solo and finale, but these are not base skills on standard, and you rarely get them on mystery, forcing you to waste precious mastery. Bounty Hunter is here, a reworked and nerfed ideation of the Confessions version, with lower damage and more utility focus. He also features his 2 stuns, though they are now blocked on round 1. Without any sustain skills or the reach of Hellion, I usually like him running siege teams with his big HP pool, guard, taunt, and general disruption skills. He's not bad as a temporary front row as long as you pair him with some good back row damage. He has no pads to buy, and he's almost always useful out of the box. Harriman has a ton of mobile damage, but unfortunately that's all he offers here. He can of course be a damage sub for your main team, but I really like him as a siege leader, getting extra actions with riposte, a bleed, good range, vuln, and combo available. Not being a primary party member, I don't really consider his paths, which are mostly side grades, though I suppose Sharp Shot would be nice if you needed some back row damage. Leper fits in this category usually. While he has great self-sustain, taunt, and fat damage, his lack of reach is still an issue, and his biggest issue being part of the Stagecoach crew is his weakness to shuffle versus camp ambush and various mobs. My final tier is Garbo tier. These heroes I rarely find use or need for. Unfortunately, Abomination is here. He's quite strong in Confessions, but he is too mastery hungry in Kingdoms, and the way random skills work, he's pretty limited without heavy investment. The way he works is he always spawns with Transform, and then 2 human and 2 beast skills, while in Radiant and Normal he also gets Absolution. He sucks in your main party because of the party-wide stress, but he can be solid in a siege team because stress doesn't matter there, though I still like him a lot less than the other frontliners I listed earlier. And finally, we have Dualist. There are many reasons I dislike her. The HP and lack of heals is the biggest for me. With Meditation upgraded, you can quasi-tank, I suppose, but otherwise she's just an average damage dealer in a sea of better heroes. Really only usable if you get one of her combat start stance trinkets, and even then it's barely so. Overall, you want your main party members to fill multiple roles with a diversity of attacks and sustain moves, while save the pure damage monkeys to back up your peasant sieges.